Historical fiction often paints the Nazis as a band of evil geniuses with futuristic prototype technology capable of leveling Earth's cities. But in their defense, that's a very unfair and false way to portray them. More accurately, the Nazis were actually a band of insane evil geniuses developing so crazy it's like they had literally traveled in time 75 years into the future, where they discovered games like Call of Duty and Halo, which is where they got most of their ideas from. From sonic wave cannons that turned your organs into marinara, to a literal sun gun, to a final weapon so evil, horrific, devastating, and unnecessarily thorough that many believe it couldn't have even existed. These are the top 10 Nazi secret superweapons. Number 10. The sonic cannon. If you were hoping for a weapon which fired sassy, tiny blue hedgehogs, then prepare to be equally disappointed and frightened. In the early 1940s, Nazi engineers developed a sonic cannon that could rip you apart without you ever even knowing what the hell was going on. Tubes containing methane and oxygen were ignited to pulse-detonate two parabolic dishes at around 44 Hertz. Following me so far? Well, let's simplify it. This machine could create sound waves so aggressive they would render your kidneys, liver, and spleen into a human marinara. The rapid compression and release of organ tissue and fluids barely affected the heart, stomach, and intestines, but that's no great comfort when the rest of your inside parts are rapidly dribbling out of your anus. Anyone within 50 meters would be torn to bits internally within a minute, and even those up to 400 meters away would still be crippled with vertigo and nausea. Unfortunately for the Nazis, this weapon was far too fragile to survive even a round from a potato gun. If only they had waited 50 years, they could have achieved the same effect much easier with a boombox and a playlist of Kesha tracks. Number 9. The Feisler Fi-103R Reichenberg. Throughout the war, V-1 rockets rained down on Europe, but only 25% of them hit their target. So how did the ever-efficient Germans increase their accuracy? They just did the most obvious thing: stick a guy inside of the rocket. Luftwaffe pilots were expected to pilot these missiles into their opponents after being released from a bomber. But unsurprisingly, not many were very keen on spending their final moments strapped into a plywood bucket seat riding a giant firework. Those kind-hearted Nazis therefore added an ejector seat. Chances of survival? Less than 1%. Number 8. The V3 cannon. Based in Pas-de-Calais in northern France, this giant supergun was to be used to bombard London using multi-charged shells which used secondary propellants to extend their range. Imagine video games where you get a huge mid-air boost to your jump. Take that principle, but with fiery boom boom death at the end of it. Standing at 130 meters tall and capable of firing 300 shells per hour, Allied raids destroyed this behemoth before completion, thank God. However, other prototypes were used to bombard Luxembourg from 58 miles away. That's pretty impressive, except nobody really knows where Luxembourg is, or really cares. Nazi secret weapon? Number 7. The X-ray gun. The Germans researched several types of energy-directed weapons with the help of the technology company Siemens, whom now directs radiation into your brain far more efficiently using mobile phones. So if the Germans had radioactive laser rifles back then, why aren't they prevalent today? Well, these weapons weren't for use on humans, as even their negligible cancerous effects would take years to bear results. Way to play the long game, Nazis. The X-ray gun actually pre-ionized the ignition inside aircraft engines as a way of bringing them down within range of more conventional anti-aircraft weaponry. Number 6. Aggregate rockets. The aggregate rocket family is even more destructive than that family of hicks who lives 2 doors down and never mows their lawn. Its most famous member was the V2 missile, responsible for 9,000 deaths in 3 cities. And that was just the start. One of the next generation in production was the A-12, a massive upgrade capable of putting 10 tons of payload in low Earth orbit despite weighing in at 3,500 tons fully fueled. What was its range? Modern analysis suggests that if completed, it could have easily pounded the US mainland from a base in Europe, making it potentially the worst European import since Piers Morgan. We're only at number 5, and the Nazis are already trying to build a sun gun. If you've played Call of Duty or watched a few Bond films, then this will look familiar. In a scheme worthy only of Mr. Burns, the Nazis planned to create a space station mounted with a 100-meter wide mirror. But this wasn't just a vanity project so Hitler could check out his sweet stash and partying on the go. The plan was to reflect the sun's light into a concentrated beam of scorching heat, capable of tearing through cities and armies. I knew the Nazis were the kind of jerks in high school who burned ants with magnifying glasses, except much worse, obviously. Unfortunately for Hitler, nobody told him that A, light doesn't work like that, and B, this technology was around 50 to 100 years away. Alright, let's get serious. Number 4. The vortex cannon. I'm bored of firing regular old shells and bullets, said one Nazi scientist. Let's just go mental and make a gun that fires effing hurricanes. Agreed, Manfred. This ridiculous anti-aircraft cannon generated explosions in a combustion chamber, which were then guided down special nozzles towards their target. So it was more a fiery tornado rifle than a hurricane gun, but that's still admittedly pretty badass. Nazi scientists actually managed to make weapons that you would find in The Legend of Zelda. Anyways, a scale model that the Nazis built managed to destroy wooden structures 600 feet away, but the full-size version couldn't do squat against actual planes flying in the air, thankfully. It would really suck to be an Allied pilot and then having to dodge tornadoes made out of fire being shot at you. Number 3. The Hinckley 162. Designed and built in 3 months in 1944, this was actually a crowdsourced design by the German public on an initiative set up by the Nazis to find a simple defensive aircraft that could be mass-produced. Really mass-produced. With wooden wings and a cheap metal fuselage, around 100 of them were built, and very few were flown successfully. So why was this crappy airplane so interesting? It was designed to be flown by inexperienced pilots, as most of the German aces had the bad habit of being blown to pieces. Who were these inexperienced pilots? The Hitler Youth, of course. Yep, that's right. The Nazis wanted to use children as their secret weapon to win the war, putting them on par for child exploitation with the Gap Corporation. Number 2. The Rat Tank. Known to Germans as the Land Cruiser, this 1,000-ton beast was just as huge as it was impractical. Essentially, it was the Kim Kardashian of World War II. Sure, its sheer size and use of submarine technology meant it would have crossed rivers with ease, but it couldn't even traverse a basic road or bridge without obliterating it. A vehicle this size, traveling at only 40 miles per hour, would have been a sitting duck for enemy bombers. So, what did Hitler do? He proposed an even heavier tank, the Monster, weighing in at 1,500 tons. I'm beginning to think that Hitler maybe wasn't that smart, or maybe he just wasn't very good at thinking up weapons. He should probably leave that task to bored Nazi scientists so they can invent more tornado guns. And finally, number 1, the Bell. Near the Wenceslas mine in Germany, by the Czech border, was a secret Nazi facility known as the Giant. Much like David Hasselhoff's mind, we don't know what went on in there, but Polish intelligence claimed to have found something horrifying. At first glance, a metallic bell-shaped object no bigger than 3 by 5 meters wouldn't seem too intimidating. Then they found the blueprints. Inside were 2 counter-rotating cylinders filled with a substance similar to mercury, codenamed Zerum 525, in addition to various peroxides. The weapon's purported function? Well, within a 150 to 200 meter zone, it would separate your blood into gel, crystallize your flesh, and decompose plant life into grease. Many skeptics claim this technology, whilst feasible, never actually existed. Frankly, I don't really care. Someone has thought of it, and now I want humanity to unthink it, please. I mean, is it really necessary to have a weapon that turns everyone who is around's blood into gel, in addition to crystallizing their flesh, and then it has to kill the plants too? This just seems a little overboard to me. I wonder who first thought up the idea for this. I'd be willing to bet another one of those bored Nazi scientists had something to do with this. Want to discover more crazy just like this? Well then check out our top 10 creepiest science experiments ever performed video, or our top 5 biggest animal mysteries ever video. Subscribe too, otherwise you'll miss out on even more awesome videos like this one.